What's up, guys? It's Joey. Today, I want to hop in and take a look at the production for TAO by The Missing Piece off of the EP, The Void. If you don't know who I am a producer, musician, guy from Nashville, Tennessee, and I produce a lot of music for my friends, and I write riffs and I put them on the internet. My buddies in The Missing Piece, some of my homies from DC, came down in November of last year, and we made an EP called The Void, and it's really sick. You should go check it out. We did 8 songs in 7 days. We sort of wrote some of them, recorded all of them. It was a lot of work in a pretty short amount of time. But there's some of my favorite people, some of my favorite musicians. They are such a cool vibe. Their music is such a cool vibe. It's really fun to work on. It's right up my alley. And I always love when I get to do stuff with them. So TAO was one of the first songs that they sent me off of this batch of songs. Immediately upon hearing it, I was so stoked. I thought the vibe was so sick, and I knew that if that was the vibe going into the EP, it was going to be an absolute banger. So I'm going to show you guys the demo to sort of play what we started out with. We built everything off of this. It's a really small loop. This is what we got. I heard that little tiny snippet and was like, yes, this is sick. We're going to crush. So we had that to build off of. And then while they were in Nashville with me, I think it was 2 years ago at this point, we were recording The Infinite Shore, which is another song that's on the Void EP. You should go check it out. I had started a shoegaze project that ended up just never coming to fruition. And they were one of the first people that heard it while we were in the studio working on Infinite Shore. And so I thought to myself, well, it would be really nice if one of these songs could see the light of day. And so I took the bridge section of one of those shoegaze songs and we used it for the down section in this one. I'll show you that one. But that lead guitar, I literally just copied the actual stem from that song into this one. And I think we kept most of the chords the same, but that ended up being the bridge section for TAO. So overall, what I was really excited about was the sort of shoegaze vibe, but mixed with that sort of warbly, resampled pad that they had in the demo. The sort of like newer shoegaze kind of super crushed and big vibe, but with vocals that were more nonchalant and sort of in the background that were kind of like fuzzed out. I love songs that are really heavy and aggressive, but the vocals are not. I think that that's such like a cool sort of juxtaposition to put in any song, really. But then all of these like cool lo-fi sections that we came up with, I just knew that like if we could really marry those two vibes together, it would crush and be super sick. So all of that together ended up turning into this.
Just give everything.
So you get it. I love this song. I think this is one of the coolest productions, one of the better mixes that I've done in a long time. So yeah, really stoked on it. Let's jump in and take a look. All right, so up here at the top, I've got the drums that we recorded. There's 2 different drum kits in this song. We'll talk about that later. This is one of the coolest things I think I've ever done. We got some effects, some noise. These are the vocals. There's really not that many vocals in the song, but what I think is really cool, Laz, the guitar player, Luke, the singer, and Max, the drummer, they all sing on this song, which I think is really cool. We got some bass tracks, some synth bass, a lot of guitar rhythms, which is something that me and Peace do all the time. If you saw my video about the Infinite Shore, talking about layering guitars, a lot of those principles are present in this mix also. So I'll see if I can put a link in one of the corners. And a little lead guitar. These are some of the tracks from the other song that we incorporated into this. Yeah, let's jump in on some drum sounds, because I honestly think that this is one of the better drum mixes that I've ever done. Here is the drums overall. Absolutely massive. These drums were recorded here in this room. They weren't recorded where the drums are placed now. They were recorded on the back side of the room. When they were here, this room was sort of like rotated 90 degrees or whatever. I've moved some stuff around since. Recorded right behind me. We used my roommate Josh's Orange County kit. It sounds great. It's kind of old, I'm pretty sure, but we used my Truth custom bell brass snare. It is cracked. We used it for Infinite Shore. Or no, we didn't use it for Infinite Shore. We used it for a couple of the singles that they put out before Infinite Shore. They came down and did a couple songs with Cam Mizell, and that's how I met the boys. I got to assist on that. Used that snare for that. I ended up buying it because I liked it so much. And here we are. So that was the kit, sort of a bunch of Zildjian cymbals. Yeah, and we'll go through each track, and I'm going to break down each sound. I guess let's start off with the kick drum. Now, a couple of the source tones that we got, I wasn't really happy about. And a lot of that I feel like is because we were so time crunched that I kind of just had to throw and go. We made it work afterwards. But let me see if I can pull up the drums with no processing, no sample replacement, just so that you can hear everything exactly how we got it. Here's the kit with no samples, everything raw. Now, obviously, the levels are thrown off a little bit because I just turned everything off, but it's not a terrible starting point. If we focus in on the kick drum, this is my Behringer BA19A. It's like a boundary mic that you set inside the kick drum. I have a lot of trouble controlling the low end with it. I feel like it's a very fat and long sounding mic, if that makes sense. I wanted something that was more focused. So I gated it, I compressed it a little bit, and then ran it into trigger. And I'm using the Yamaha Recording Custom kick drum from GGD, the direct mic and the sub. And that was the kick drum sound that I ended up going with. Doing a little bit of boosting on the low end. And that kick track comes over to my kick bus, pulling out some mid-range. CLA 76, I love this thing on literally everything. And I am crushing that thing, holy shit. Normally would not go that crazy. Okay. Next up, virtual tape machine. This thing is incredible for making kick drums, bass, guitars, overall mixes just sound huge. It really does wonders in the low end. And then I've got a little bit of carving out of the slap and some more low end. That's my kick drum. Snare. So this is the raw snare drum sound. Let's turn down a little bit. But not a bad starting point. That bell brass sounds really good. Doing a little bit of transient design, making it smack a little bit more, and then some gating. I love that snare drum. It's so sick. All right, I got a little bit of EQ, bringing out some top end, cutting out some of the ring, and Fab Filter Saturn, which is almost acting more like a gate. So if you know this trick, you know that it's incredible and it almost always works. But I've got 2 high bands set here. Looks like I turned this one down just to cut out some of the harsher sound from the smack. This dynamics knob right here is really good at cutting out cymbal bleed. If I turn these back up, you'll hear those cymbals come back in. But if I turn them down, that cymbal bleed just disappears. I'm doing a little bit of saturation just to get a little bit more smack out of the drum. I've got my snare bottom. It's getting gated the same way as the top. And I'm pulling out a lot of lows, focusing it more on that smacky range. So this is the live snare. And then that is getting supplemented with this trigger, which is the Gretsch bell brass from Modern and Massive. A little bit of EQ. I've found that when you're using samples, you kind of got to cut a little bit of a top end out of them, just because the top end is kind of where samples start to sound fake, in my opinion. But we turn that on. So it's really just going for the low end. Make it extra punchy. And then this is my snare sound with the sample. All of these snare sounds come over to this snare bus. We got some EQ that's really making the fundamental pop. Making it hit hard. Virtual mix rack. This is where a lot of the snare sound is coming from. So we got some saturation with virtual channel. It's kind of evening out each hit. I got a little bit of extra top end going into the FG401 compressor, which isn't really doing too much. And then some transient design. So without it again. And with it really pulls it up front. Again, Fab Filter Saturn, doing a little bit more of that dynamics control up top, which it almost sounds like it's shortening the length of the snare bottom than anything. I mean, there's not really that much cymbals in it to begin with, but if I turn it off, it's kind of like, but if I turn it on, the focus gets put more down here on the low end. And then I've got just a little bit more cleanup EQ. Most of the time with drums, I'll put another EQ at the end of the chain towards the end of a mix, just to make sure that everything sits well together after all the guitars are in and the vocals. And so this is giving a little bit more fundamental and cutting out some mid-range. Putting it even more up front. So there's kick and snare. And then we've got toms. The toms were completely replaced with trigger also. I wasn't super stoked on the sound that we got from the toms, mostly because there was a lot of cymbal bleed. Again, we just kind of had to throw and go. I just ended up replacing the toms. I'm pretty sure I used some of the Slate toms. Yep, the Never tom. I really like these. This is what the toms sounded like. I trimmed them down so that they wouldn't get triggered on anything else, but here's the toms. They don't sound bad, but there is a little too much cymbal in them for what I like, and I didn't really want to go in and dig it out. So once I put the trigger on, this is what they sounded like. Way more focused. Now, I've got some EQ on them. This one is just taking out some top end, kind of focusing that attack frequency, Now, you'll really notice it on this second tom because I had to pitch it down to match the pitch of the floor tom that we had. So I am pulling out a lot more mid-range from this floor tom. And it just makes it sit in a little bit better. There's all of the close mics. Nice and up front. Overheads, arguably the most important mics on the drum kit. Here are my overheads, raw. My Soyuz FET 013s, I use them on overheads all the time. And I'm not sure if it was because of the angled ceilings in here. I also didn't have as much treatment up, but they came out sounding really pokey and kind of harsh in certain spots. So the first thing that I did was I threw FabFilter Saturn on and I cranked up the saturation on a lot of this, which kind of just smooths everything out. There's still those ringy frequencies, which just kind of smoothed everything out. And then I went in and nuked a couple of those harsher frequencies that were still ringing out. And then because I still wanted to smooth everything a little bit, I used the cymbal smooth setting on Soothe. I don't normally like doing this. It's kind of like a last case resort, but it's not doing much. Just grabbing a couple of the little pokey guys. Hi-hat mic, which who cares about hi-hat mics? It just rolled off, and that's blended in with the overheads. Those two come to my overhead bus, and I'm rolling off a lot of the low end, more than I normally do. And I think that's because I was trying to go for more of like the super punchy, almost borderline octane drum sound. I wanted all of that low impact to come from my close mics. I probably could have gotten away with like maybe a little bit less, but the snare kind of disappears. And then it's getting compressed a little bit by this V comp. It's doing a little bit of gain, but mostly just ducking the snare down a little bit. And then a little bit more cleanup EQ. Now, this happened, again, towards the end of the mix. We noticed that there were some areas between the guitars and the overheads, the cymbals that were conflicting, so we ducked a little bit out. Kind of just makes it a little more tolerable, too. And this is our main drum kit. Now, we still got a lot of work to do to make them huge. So now we start bringing in the room mics, which to me is my favorite part about recording drums. We start out with these, which are two Cascade Fathead ribbon mics that were spread pretty far apart in the room with us. There's a little bit of hiss from the cymbals that got taken out. Way more focused on like the kick and snare now. And we have another stereo set of rooms, which I'm pretty sure were two like very shitty digital reference, like the Guitar Center drum mic kit. And they were in, I think it's called ORTF. I don't fucking know. But it's like they were both pointed away from each other on a stereo bar, down the stairs, around the hallway, and out in my living room. So they were a good 20, 30 feet from the kit. This is what those sound like. Way more washy and distant sounding. So again, I'm taming some cymbal resonance, focusing it more on the bottom end. And this one, because it's way more dynamic, like you can see those snare hits poking out. I'm crushing it down with the Arouser, like distressor plugin. So we're getting a little bit of saturation from this thing. And then taming some ringy stuff. Surprisingly cymbal heavy. But once it's blended with the near rooms, the ones that were in here, you kind of get the transients from this one poking up above it, and it kind of balances out. So we still get the washiness, but still with like impact. And those are my main stereo rooms. Now I have a mono room, which was my Rode NTK, probably back about 2 feet from the kick drum. And that sounds like this. So I'm doing a little bit of slipping for phase, just delayed it by like 3 milliseconds. And then I've got some EQ. Tamming some cymbals, bringing the mid-range forward. And the thing about room mics that I have learned is that stereo room mics sound better on the kit when it's in solo, but you almost have to rely more on your mono rooms and like the mono signal coming from your stereo mics, because especially I think I have 4 or 5 pairs of stereo rhythm guitars. Those rooms have to fight with all of that frequency information. They've got to fight with BGVs if you've got synths or keys, stuff like that. So having the mono room make everything punch right down the middle. And it really only has to compete with the main vocal and your kick and snare, which it's supplementing anyway. That's the mono room. If I put it in with the others, that is the majority of the room sound. Now, I had a fun little idea that I don't really think worked out very well. I had just gotten a new guitar with a piezo mic in it, and I thought it would be really cool to set the guitar next to the drum kit while we recorded and tune it to an open tuning. I think I saw it on Instagram or something, and just compress the shit out of it. Did not end up being as cool as I thought. This is what that sounds like. And I think the problem was there's like a blend between the piezo and the mic. And I think I had the mic turned on. So it ended up just being harsh and like sounded like someone was punching a guitar, which I didn't really like. So I went in and I pulled out all of those string resonances. There it is clipping. So all of that's gone. And then I pulled the snare transients down a good bit. Kind of just turned it into like a washier mono room mic again. It's not doing much. But the last mic on the kit is this crotch mic, which is a Fender Bullet mic, harmonica microphone that my roommate has. And this is like the secret weapon for drums for me, honestly. Very subtle, but it just has like the perfect mid-range punch. Especially on the kick drum, like that sounds sick. A little bit of EQ, cleaning it up. So now all of those room mics come down to this room bus. We got some EQ, cleaning up some ringy stuff, focusing it more, and it's going into some CLA 76. Kind of just ducking the snare a little bit, giving us a little bit of gain. And we have all of our microphones now. Typically, the first sample that I add after this to make everything sound bigger is a room sample only for the snare. This is the stereo sample that I added. And it's the same samples as the Gretsch Bell Brass. This one should also be Gretsch Bell Brass. Yep, the far room. And it is getting boosted a lot in the top end, less in the low mids. And then I have another one, which is a mono room. So this is those together. And what I really like about these is that I can blend these into the overall drum mix. You'll notice they're going straight to my drum bus. They're not getting routed to any of these. And depending on how loud I make these snare samples, it makes the overall kit feel way more explosive. And here, I'll show you what I mean. Here's without them. With them. And if I want it to be a little less aggressive, just pull them down. You can control the tail of them to make it feel a little shorter, make the room feel smaller. Now you have to be a little careful and just make sure that like ghost notes are either not getting picked up or they are getting picked up, and velocities if you're doing like a roll or a build or anything. You got to do a little bit of automation to make those sit pretty. This is the drums. Now my close mics are going to a parallel compression send. So the low end in that kick really starts to bloom from this CLA 76 just getting destroyed. And I have a snare verb just to make it sound a little wider. And the real magic comes from this drum verb right here. Super long plate reverb in Verb Suite Classic, or Hall reverb in Verb Suite Classic. And the snare is just boosted into it. And that's the overall drum sound. Now, there is another drum kit over here, and I honestly think that this is one of the coolest production things that I've ever done. So we recorded the drums. It's the same kit. It's the same everything, the same microphones. There's a lot of really cool production stuff that's going on that you can't really hear in the song, but I can hear it. And now, if you listen to the song, you'll be able to hear it. But check this out. Like a bunch of really weird, tapey, glitchy stuff. And then here comes Luke. I think that's so sick. So the way that I did this is there's no processing on the individual channels at all. So if I play it, this is just the raw kit with a little bit of leveling. This mix tool just controls volume of the cymbals because I'm crushing this this drum bus, and I wanted to drop the cymbals down so that it didn't like ring out too loud into that compression. And after that, one of the greatest plugins of all time, Camel Crusher. I miss it every single fucking day. I can't get it on my new Mac because it's outdated. Yeah, this is what this does. It's perfect. This is the default setting too. I don't think I touched anything. After that, there's a little bit of EQ roll off just to make it sound a little more lo-fi. And then we get into the fun stuff. So I've got Valhalla delay. You can see all of my wild automation that's going on over here. So I've got the mix, which is controlling how much of the delay that you hear, and the delay time, which is giving me all these weird like kind of things, you know. This is what this does. Here's a big one. And another big one. The whole time the mix is slowly growing. That's just to make it a little more trippy and spacey. And then I have the J37, a wonderful tape emulation, probably my favorite tape plugin. And this one is also doing some delay automation. So I'm driving it into this plugin. And then you'll see the delay is set to a certain time and it's slowly getting bigger. I'm doing the Haas effect. So I have like the delay time on the left is 176 milliseconds and on the right, it's 161. So because of that, it kind of shifts this like psychoacoustic spectrum and makes the drum sound wider. And then we've got Pro Q4, which I think just does like a little bit. Oh, doesn't do any automation at all. Making it sound a little bit more lo-fi. I think that shit is cool. I think that is so sick. And then once you pair that, we have in the 2 down sections in this song, we have these 2 resampled drum sections. This one is from the demo, actually. The drums in their demo, I just took them and I took a specific section using All Reliable. This is one of my favorite plugins ever. Cymatics Origin, downsampling it. Then we're taking some of the sustain out of the rooms with SPL, focusing on more. Again, the love of my life, Camel Crusher. Making them big. This is interesting. I have 2 Vibrolo Stomp plugin pedals on here. That's weird. I wonder what this is doing. Oh, it's like vibrato. Okay. That one's doing some pitch automation. And then chorus to spread it out wide. And then there is some drums that we resampled from a song that you can clearly see in the track header, but I'm just not going to talk about it. It's fine. And those sound like this. Put a bunch of tremolo on them. Some phaser. This is what they sound like by themselves. So, pretty healthy low cut, tremolo, and phaser. Those 2 together sound really cool by themselves. You get this really like underwater, swimmy kind of vibe. But it's even cooler when you put those with those lo-fi live drums. One of my favorite drum sounds I've literally ever gotten. And it comes out. Builds and grows, drops. There's Luke. And then we're back to the real drums. That's drums. Honestly, some of my favorite drums that I've ever recorded, produced, mixed, you know, whatever. Let's move on to bass. Way more straightforward. We got a DI. Here it is raw. Now, I have this high cut on the DI because the DI is getting copied and going to a sub track, which we'll talk about here in a second, but I keep those the same so that they don't step on each other's toes, really. And then the DI is getting compressed with Ren Axe. Typical bass DI. And then we put in the sub track. So that sub track is all the information under 100, which just gives us that sort of body. And then we've got amped bass. This is my Quad Cortex with that same sort of roll off. Looks like a different steep, different dB per octave curve, which might not be good. I don't know. All of those together sound like this. And that bass amp is really farty, and honestly, I kind of hate it right now, but that's fine. Those are coming to this bass bus. We're hitting an EQ, which is doing some tone shaping. A little bit of cleanup in the low mids. It's always difficult down there when you're using like multiple basses. CLA 3A. I love this thing on bass. And then a compressor, which is side chaining to the kick. We'll talk about this a little bit later because there's a lot of side chaining that's going on across all of the instruments. I think even some of the vocals, just because that sort of pumpy side chain compression sound where everything ducks. It sounds like the speakers are just exploding. Was one of my favorite parts about the demo. I put that on pretty much every track, multiple stages of it. We'll talk about that. But yeah, this bass, you can really tell when this sub track isn't in. kind of loses a little bit of oomph. But to help supplement that, I have this sub track, the Martinic key bass. It's free. Get it. It's the best sub bass I've ever used. I use it on literally everything. Really simple. It's like perfect amount of saturation on a sine wave. I didn't touch it at all. That's just it committed down. I had another sub track because in their demo, they had this sort of like square wave resonance curve bass thing. They didn't have any live bass in their demo at all, actually. And I started out by trying this. I want to say it's my mini log. I could be wrong. Had this in the track originally. Kind of sounds like GTA. And then I decided I didn't really like it, except for in the intro. So when everything's fading up. It's coming up with that intro. It's the only spot in the song that happens. And then there's another synth bass, which happens in all of the down sections. Like in the bridge, it happens in the first down section after, I guess you call it like first chorus. It's just a wave pack thing that I've had. It's called like the Travis Scott kit, something like that. And it just has this really good wave file of a sort of subby, chorusy bass. And I use this thing all the time. All of the basses together sound like this. Comes out. Get a synthy. I'm gonna put the drums back in. So that's the foundation that we're building off of. Now, we have a lot of guitars here. A lot of guitars. I cannot recall what a lot of these amps are, but I'm going to try to make an educated guess as to what I used for everything. Starting off, looks like their demo guitars made it in. And you can hear the pump. Which is actually something that was kind of difficult for us to do because a lot of the time the drum part that Max played was a little bit more complex than the demo drums were. And so there were times where we would have to almost fight the drums with like how we wanted them to sidechain. So I created a pumper track or a ducker track. We're not going to say pumper. That sounds wrong. Ducker track. I almost said it again. Fuck. Ducker track, which is literally just a kick sample that I put everywhere that I wanted the track to duck. And those side chains are sent to this. We got their scratch guitars, which I literally just chopped up and put according to what the chords were. And you can hear it has the like synth thing in it, which was interesting that just stayed and made it. But anyway, if you know me, you know how much I love layering guitars and how important it is to my guitar sound, the sounds that I like. I actually have a video about this on my YouTube already. You can go check that out. I don't know how this works, but it'll be in one of these corners. So I layer a lot of different guitar sounds to get to the sound that I want. So these are all of the rhythm guitars together. Kind of noisy. It's like very low-y, chuggy. There's surprisingly not as much low end in them as I remember. Let's go through one at a time, check them out. So we started out with those scratch guitars. We're going to come up here. These are the cleans. Not that clean, but they're cleaner. If I had to guess, this is more than likely my twin on my quad, I think. Let's take all of this off and see what it sounds like. Not that different. First EQ. Putting a lot of focus on the top end. Compression. Like the best guitar compressor plugin. Another EQ. I think this one's doing some automation. Just making these harmonics a little more focused and upfront. And then we've got cymatics again. And I'm only using the saturation and the movement knob. The movement knob is basically just like, here, I'll show you. Like a lo-fi knob thing. But that was really important in getting that sort of like dreamy, blown out, fucked up, like tapey, you know, kind of sound. And I'm pretty sure that's on all of the guitars. As we go through, you'll see more of that. Really quickly though. Those sound like two different guitars. I think they are. I think whatever this is has humbuckers. And then this is single coil. Interesting. Maybe that was a conscious decision. I don't know. I don't think I'm that smart. I don't think I'm that big brain. I think that just happened naturally. But that's the clean guitar. Now we come down to the baritone rhythm. If I had to guess, I'm pretty sure that this clean guitar is either my Burcham Telly or it's my Chroma. I think it's probably the Chroma. This baritone down here is my roommate Nick's Gretsch. I think it's like the Jet baritone. I could be totally wrong. This thing is cracked. It sounds so good. This is the baritone. Noisy and gross. Let's take everything off. So first, EQ, notching out a little gross stuff. Yep. Compression. Now probably, yep. Focusing it a little bit. We got an SSL channel. Wow, I got fancy on this one. Bringing out top end, making it more aggressive. Cymatics origin once again. Again, mostly just the movement to get it all wobbly. Pulling out a little bit of that 2K gross stuff. Kind of just noise. So let's listen to those two together. This is the clean and the baritone. This is the majority of the sound. There's some weird little flutters and stuff in here. I don't think it's coming from cymatics either. I might have just fucked up and skipped a bunch of stuff. Oops. Now, I'm going to quickly explain the philosophy about these things. The clean guitar, because of distortion, there's not nearly as much distortion on the cleaner guitar as there is on the baritone guitar. And so I'm able to do more complex voicings and play more open strings and it not turn into noise as easily. So if I take this clean guitar out, you'll hear the tone get a lot less chimey. Versus it back in. We've got some octave drop guitars. This definitely was my Chroma because I love the way that that thing sounds dropped down like that. This is raw. More than likely 5150 with the octave drop tube screamer. If I had to guess. I didn't say about the baritone earlier, but that's probably like a JCM 800 or 900 with a Marshall cab, I think. I could be totally wrong. Cutting out a little bit of ring. Some compression. Absolutely nothing. Probably just cleaning up some noise or whatever up top. And then once again, cymatics. This one's doing a lot more saturation though. Saturation on this plugin is really slept on. Sounds really good. And movement. So let's add that to our rhythms now. So here's the normal, just the two main rhythms. Here comes the octave. There's the power. The girth. Now what's even funnier is that I do it again because I have my bass 6 underneath all of that too. Not playing as low as I thought it would. Let's take everything off. Raw tone. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I had a patch that was a JCM 800 and a diesel VH4 blended. It was like the JCM 800 into the 1960A cab and a VH4 into probably a Mesa cab. And then those were blended together back, and there was like a bunch of EQ and shit. Probably some crazy tone. I've since wiped my quad. I got rid of all of these tones because I just wanted to start fresh. Everything was sounding the same. So I can't, unfortunately, tell you for sure what the tones were. If we pop through this, little presence boost, little mid suck. Oh, that's funny. I just got an email from Cymatics. They know I'm talking about them. Focusing in more on the top end. Compression again. More pulling out lows. And cymatics again. Now, some of these are being automated, so I would assume that there's sections where I'm just pulling the resample frequency down. Let's put all of these back together again, all 4 of them. So we got clean, baritone, low octave, bass 6. And it's so full. Put drums and bass in. That shit sounds good. I've got a little reverse guy that happens over here. There's like a re-intro. This is taken, or no, this is recorded. And then there's another really cool thing up here that I thought was really sick. I just took one of the guitars that plays through this filter section, like when it gets quiet. So if we look at the automation on this, oh, I think I bounced it down. So I bounced down, it's cymatics doing the resample thing going up and then back down. I left this little tail over top of it accidentally at first, but I get this weird phasing thing that happens. I wanted like some sort of noise on the snare hit before everything comes back in. So like, and so the phasing that happens because of that resample knob getting turned back down between these two was like perfect. I thought it sounded so sick. All in. Just a little tiny thing that happens, but really cool. We have some leads. I don't even know what this is. Just chorus 2. That sounds like my Vox preset on there. Focusing it a little bit. Compression. A little more compression because it's a lead. Cymatics. More saturation, push it up to the front more. A little bit more EQ just to kind of make it feel a little more lo-fi vintagey. And then the secret sauce, Valhalla delay. It's the best delay. So if we play that whole section. we have the guitar from the Shoegaze song. And this should be the exact same settings from that song. So this is back when I was completely in the box. So if you want a good in the box shoegaze tone, spring reverb into fuzz, chorus, vibrolo. Dude, this vibrolo plugin is cracked. It's so good at doing the warble thing. That goes into Ace by Shattered Glass Audio. This is a free plugin. It's all right. It's not bad. I'm not going to say it's the greatest thing ever, but it is really good if you have nothing and you want sort of like a tweed sound. This is what those sound like on their own. And that's running into cymatics, getting a little down sampled, a lot of movement, a little chorus. Tiny little bit of EQ. Pro Q2. Big throwback. I literally just copied the chain and everything. And then we've got room reverb, just making it even more bassy. And Pro Q2 doing a lot of gain. Interesting. In this section, we also have some keys. Yeah, just one drone note. Faded that up on the back half. All right, now that is all of the guitars and a couple of the keys. So let's talk about some of the samples that are in here. Funnily enough, the intro, this section right here, and it kicks in. That is just the beginning of their demo and nothing else. I think I might have put like a rain sound over it. Forest rain. Make it sound crackly. That is, the entire intro is just their demo because I didn't feel like I could recreate it and it feel that cool. And then we've got this super sick sample. I don't know what Max did to make this sound, but I love it. This was the original sound. And I wanted to focus it a little more. So, focus the bands, downsampled, saturation. This is automated in certain sections. Some Mondo mod. And a little bit more EQ. Pulling out some ring. And I think there's another one. Yeah, this was like a synth, I guess, that he designed to go over that. Man, I wish I'd turn that up. That's cool. I'm gonna turn it up now. And that is the entire instrumental for TAO by The Missing Piece. There are some booms and, you know, just things to make it hit a little harder. You know, basic stuff. There's some VHS sound over the bridge. You wouldn't really notice unless you knew it was there. Always hear the beat right here when I'm listening to it. All right, let's talk about vocals really quickly before my camera dies. I was very lazy and I routed all of the vocals to these two buses, just the vocal main and the vocal double. This is what these vocals sound like. Just breathe. Just with effects, let me turn those on. Everything running from the sun will So very saturated, very spacey. Let's turn everything off and I'm just going to build it from scratch. So this is the vocal. This is Laz in the verse singing just completely raw.
Just breathe.
With
Just give
tune.
everything.
We wanted to go for that like hyper tuned sound. So I got a little bit of de-essing.
Just breathe.
Now, one thing that was interesting about tracking these vocals, I'm pretty sure we used an SM7, but we tracked all of the vocals through this guy. This is the JHS Color Box V2, I think. I noticed tracking this thing that there is a very big dip at like 4K, which works great for these sort of saturated, distorted vocals. I don't know if I would use it for clean vocals again, but for distorted vocals, it's really cool. So if we start putting processing on, I've got some EQ focusing the vocal.
Just give everything.
Pushing it more towards the high end. Now I've got some compression.
Just breathe.
Pushing it up front.
Give everything. Running
A little more
from
de-essing.
the sun will.
And it sounds like I'm over de-essing at this point, but that's mostly because, like, listen,
Just give.
those S's disappear, but that's because we're going to saturate it even more here in a second. So then we go to virtual mix rack. This is where a lot of the sound comes from.
Everything.
Whole lot of top end.
Running from.
This is based off of a preset that I found from Cam Becker. I think I have it saved. Yeah, hi, I'm Cam Becker. Virtual channel, doing some saturation, evening things out. A little bit of de-essing, some top end from the Neve. The distressor is pushing it.
The sun will.
And you can see it's redlining a little bit, so we're getting distortion from that too. And then this air plugin just putting that top end back in.
Leave you empty.
And then we've got the SIE EQ. I love this thing. It's great.
Just breathe.
Pushing it
Just
more up front.
give everything.
Adding mids, adding a little bit of top end, but this drive knob just really brings things up to the front. We got a little bit more EQ, which is going to tame all of that high end that we got from the saturation now.
Running from the sun will.
And that's going to let me really push the vocal up to the front. Another EQ, I think this is being automated. Yeah, looks like it. So in certain sections, that's getting automated. I've got a double also, which has got very similar processing on it, but it has a doubler at the end, which is really spreading everything out wide.
From the sun will.
Spreading everything.
Leave you empty.
And now we've got all of these effects. So I've got a spreader on the main, which is more doubler. Got a room, true verb, vocal spread. I use this on every mix. I've got a slap delay from J37. Now, it doesn't sound like anything's happening, but the left side is delayed by 94 milliseconds. The right side is delayed by 103 milliseconds. So we get this sort of Haas effect. Same thing as the Lofi drums. So if I put the main in with it, you'll hear.
Running from the sun will. Leave you empty.
Tiniest bit of air and space. And then I've got a big verb. That is Valhalla plate and repeater doing some delay. And a throw delay that is getting activated. You can see these automation points right here, just on certain words. Mostly to fill the gaps between certain lines. So let's put everything back in. Take a listen.
Just breathe. Just give.
And all of these vocals, the double and the main, are getting routed to this bus, which has a little bit of EQ and some soothe. Soothe's pulling some pretty heavy weight here.
Everything. Running
If we jump over to the chorus, we've got Luke singing the chorus. Again, running down those same buses. There is a little bit of automation happening on these two just to change effects levels. So there's like a little bit less verb, a little less delay in the choruses, a little bit more slap. And then over here in verse 2, I have another double. It's like a formant down thing going on underneath everything that's already there. M Auto Pitch is a cracked plugin. Not, I didn't crack it. It's a free plugin. It is very good, is what I'm saying. I would almost take this over Little Altar Boy for vocals. So go pick this thing up, check it out. It's really great. If you need a free auto-tune plugin, it works great for that too. I have a cool little vocal throw thing over here. Doesn't sound like much right now, but I bounced it down and we get this delay swirl that goes into the lo-fi section with the Lofi drums. You can see all the automation I did. So it's going to start pitching down. I love doing swirls like this on guitars, on vocals. And then towards the end, it goes crazy, and then it swells back into the last chorus. Now, this last chorus, we've got Max singing, again, down those same channels.
One day you will meet your end and learn that gravity is not your friend.
There's a spot where I missed an edit. It's okay. Here's with the effects.
One day you will meet your end and learn that gravity is not your friend.
Looks like I got a cool little ad-lib thing going on. I don't even know what this is. That's cool. What is going on? Okay, so it's the same chain as the doubles. I've got doubler on. Gross Beat is doing some glitchy stuff. This is a really cool plugin. FL Studio. Shout out. And it's getting some cool little effects. And then typical low octave layered in certain spots.
Wanna feel like
Underneath the second chorus, I believe.
yourself, leave behind everything else.
Laz and Luke's voices just sit really well with each other. And I got some BGVs, Max singing some harmonies. These, I just did all of the effects on the channel. I didn't route them to the vocal effects just because I wanted to have control.
Wanna feel like yourself,
A little bit of volume control on them.
behind everything else. Give the extra steps.
Like we've got some down here in the verse as well.
Just sinking deep.
Some vocal stacks. Got some on the outro.
One day you will meet your end and learn that gravity is not your friend. Take the world and feel it shake you. Got a lot of dreams to come true.
Love the way that outro feels. So sick. That is every element of the song, more or less. So if we want to talk about sort of overarching things that are happening in terms of the production, I have a lot going on these buses. So I had sidechained the bass. We talked about that earlier, but then again, on my bass sum, I have two more instances of sidechain compression going on. I've got track spacer, which is ducking certain frequencies so that it doesn't combat with the kick drum at all. And then I have another compressor. This one should be linked to the ducker channel. And that ducker is getting sent to the rhythms and not the leads, because there aren't really that many leads. Mix bus is pretty fat. Let's see what this sounds like without any sort of mix bus compression on it. Doing a lot of work there. Instrument bus, I've got the FG gray, kind of just catching snare hits. I got a little bit of EQ, just boosting the top end, making everything a little bit more present, and then I'm clipping my instrument bus. So getting a little bit of clip only on the snare hits, it looks like, just to push the mix even further up to the front. All right, let's get rid of the stuff that I'm not using. Mix bus. We're starting out with EQ. This is only rolling off the sides, a little bit of the low end, but there's not much going on down here. Rolling off a little bit of the sides just so that the sub isn't coming through. So just the rumble on the sides, because it's like I was saying with the drums, I really want all of that impact down there coming from the bass and the close mics of the drums. So I'm rolling off all of the sides. We've got the SSL compressor. And that's really just getting triggered off the drums. We got another secret weapon plug-in. This is the black box design. This is going to make a big difference. %50 mix, a little bit of pentode, triode, distortion, soothe on the mix bus. Don't fight me, please. I am cheap. Don't worry, Gullfoss is after this. I probably could have used a little less of this, to be honest. All right, next up we got Gullfoss, and I'm using that way too much. This was like the first project that I used Gullfoss on. Yeah, it's moving a little too much. That makes me uncomfortable. We're gonna go over to the next EQ. This is an EQ match. What am I matching with? I don't know. I was EQ matching something, probably a Sleep Token song, because we used the mixes for Sleep Token as a pretty big reference for this, but this will make a little bit of tonal difference. Big difference in the low end. Kick comes through a lot more. And then clipping some of the transients. Getting like a dB and a half of clipping. 2 dB. And it's mostly on the snare drum, I would assume. Because we're clipping it, we can push it a little bit harder into the limiter. The limiter doesn't have to work as hard. I'm not really getting that much gain reduction from the limiter, more just for volume. And there you go. That is TAO by The Missing Piece. If you liked this video, go check out the song. Go check out the rest of the EP. There's a bunch of really good songs on there. I kind of want to dive in on some of those also. If you enjoyed watching this, you stuck it out all the way to the end, let me know if you want me to do this more. I really like talking about these things. It's also very insightful seeing decisions that I made previously because my method is kind of always evolving. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Go watch one of the other videos. I say this every time. I want to do YouTube more, and hopefully I will. Leave a like, subscribe, or don't. I don't really care, but have a great day. Thanks.